Welcome back to Q Live. I'm Chris Walsh for the Q Communications Committee, and we are here on the final day of Q 2011 in Palm Springs, California. We're joined now by Superintendent Tom Torlakson.
Great, Chris, to be here.
Thank you very much. Now, this is your first time back at Q after becoming State Superintendent of Education, so congratulations.
To the main Q conference. I was able to get to the one
That's
at
right,
American
up in Napa.
Canyon High School, and it was just fabulous.
Yeah, that was a great day. We're glad you joined us then and here, and I think that just shows your continued support for education technology, so we're very thankful. You were just out at the Student Showcase, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on some of the great things you saw out there.
Well, just fascinating. So much creativity. The students are engaged, inspired. And one student said, I'm doing this so I won't get bored or fall asleep in class. And another student said, I am just so happy. It's fun every day. Other students were saying, I'm learning something new every single day. So the display of critical thinking, problem solving, technical skills that these students have from lower elementary grades right on through high school, just incredible. Yeah,
the engagement's very high, obviously. Now, you
Indeed.
saw a couple of specific things. I'm wondering what your thoughts on some of the specific projects you saw.
Well, we saw a high school that was working on making a movie and creating a cityscape, the tall buildings, and talking about teen suicide and bullying, and it's just very
serious
powerful,
issues.
very serious issues, but just done professionally, with a great message to students and a great help, I believe. And others were doing history and learning different things in language arts, so just incredible array of ways to learn in every single subject matter.
So I know when I see those showcases, I'm really inspired, and one of the first things I think of is, how do we get more people, more of our classrooms doing these great projects? I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, that's one of my main goals as superintendent, I think, is we look at the way that education is going for the future. It must go digital, it must go creative, linking to the internet. It must have the tools and the professional development of teachers to use the tools so that our young people can learn to do these creative, miracle-making, wonderful projects. So I see this as the direction to go. I have a project as superintendent. We're calling it No Child Left Offline.
Nice.
And we're just very focused. We have a working team that's going to expand out. Q will be definitely centrally involved. The leadership of Q over so many years on these topics is critical. But we want the publishers and the curriculum instruction materials creators to think digital, stop mowing down trees, get away from the concept of a textbook that's outdated pretty quickly after it's adopted. Digital is flexible, it is up to date, it can be monitored and make sure that it meets the current standards we're aiming at for our kids' competencies.
And there's some specific legislation kind of moving in this direction?
Yes, my good friend, Assembly Member Bob Blumenfield is leading the charge. I recently met with him in his office in the State Assembly, and he is committed, and we worked together last year on that general direction of, first of all, saying that learning that's online should count for the same kind of credits and same kind of reimbursements from the state. So the state needs to change its financial model so it recognizes online learning as legitimate, as powerful, as effective, and gives a school some of the dollars needed to conduct that kind of learning alternative. As well, we're looking at different ways to redefine instructional materials. The state constitution and the state regulations talk about textbooks.
Right.
And we know that there are mistakes, there are new discoveries made. Pluto is still a dog in Disneyland in most astronomy books.
Right.
Just kidding. But Pluto is still a planet, and we got to take care of that. And getting up to date, our textbooks don't have anything about President Obama or Afghanistan or Iraq. That's a shame that our world in the classroom is so far behind the real world, and so going digital is a key part of changing that.
And I think some people underestimate the power of just that one change. Allowing us to, as a state, spend money in a different way with these digital resources is huge.
Right.
It really is huge in a state like California or Texas that sort of drives that.
Right.
I know for a lot of people, especially teachers and school staff, who come to Q, some of these policy issues seem very far off. far away, up in Sacramento. Other people are kind of dealing with them. What do you think that sort of the average educator can do to support these initiatives?
Well, first of all, the Q family, those teachers who already know and already doing, need to be mobilized to share that information, make sure that the parents are aware of it and the power of it, so that the parents become advocates to the school board. One of the sadder things of the last week is the layoff notices, 20,000 teachers getting layoff notices. One of the wonderful technology coordinators at one of our schools here on display today, an award-winning school, a 12-year veteran teacher is going to be laid off, and she's the technology coordinator for her school. So what happens in the school when she leaves? So that's the kind of awareness that we need to have at the grassroots level. And at the political level, it's also working with the legislature to make sure that they understand the need to change the law, but they also need to understand the need to finance education properly. So we have a budget crisis, and schools have lost 1/3 of their funding. It's difficult to replicate the kind of success and creativity that we can do with the technologies that we do have and that the students are so adept at, when you don't have the money to buy the equipment, do the professional development, when you're laying off teachers. So that's a political issue that Q members need to be engaged in, and teachers and parents around the state are rallying behind the governor's budget to get it on the ballot so we can invest in education.
So all the typical letter writing, phone calls, they work.
Don't forget Facebook, Twitter.
That's right, of course.
All the social network. We gotta
absolutely. That's what we're good at.
We're good at it. We're very good at it. So
that's great. Well, you mentioned obviously we're in some difficult times here in California, certainly around budget. I'm wondering what sort of opportunities lay in there for us to get creative, in particular, the use of technology.
Well, certainly, again, I think it's a game changer in terms of individualized instruction, kind of incredible learning tools you can pull down from the cloud, different English learning, special programs in math from GG Math and Imagine Learning, all kinds of powerful programs which can give instant feedback, diagnostic feedback on how a student's doing, whether it's in first, second, or third grade, or middle school or high school, and then the teacher can use that information to differentiate the instruction. So I think in the era of ever enlarged classes, we have, unfortunately, the most crowded classrooms in the nation practically. A teacher's ability to reach each student is enhanced greatly when you have these learning tools that help guide the student from one concept level to the next in math, or builds the vocabulary and sentence structure knowledge in English arts. So these are, again, powerful ways that technology can help. One of the challenges we have is that in the budget crisis, superintendents and school boards wanted to put a number of areas which were called categorical funding into flex. So textbook money or instructional materials money was put into flex, and a lot of districts have just stopped buying. They're trying to save classroom teachers, they're trying to save special programs on their campus. So the textbook budget has just collapsed in the last few years, and when we changed the definition of textbook to include digital learning materials, we are still stuck with the challenge of how do we get the money to buy those materials and have the up-to-date curriculum.
Yeah. I wonder too, what are some of these things that sometimes schools and school districts don't feel empowered to do, that they don't know they can do? And one of the things that comes to mind is a device in every kid's hand. There's really nothing at the state level that says kids can't bring their own devices to schools, but school districts and counties sort of put these safeguards in for a number of good reasons. But we know Napa New Tech is a good example, American Canyon, and lots of other schools have taken this risk of allowing kids to bring in their own devices. How can we sort of spread that message so that people feel like they can take those risks in times when, especially this could save a lot of money, right, and get a device in every kid's hand?
Well, as you know, I'm working with New Tech High, Barbara Nemco in Napa County, and Chuck McMinn from Intel, formerly from Intel, and we're again, a working team, and Q will be part of that team on No Child Left Offline. Must include an understanding of the digital literacy standards, and also that means teaching students the skills to filter for themselves, to know what's safe and where not to go, and also learn to know what's real and valid in what they find online and what's garbage and not you know, prejudiced or some way and not the truth. And so those kind of critical, you know, thinking skills and selectivity skills are things we should be teaching. So part of what our effort will be over the next 12 months as we launch an initiative to transform our schools thinking about digital learning is to address that very issue. And so not to be afraid, but to embrace.
Great. Well, you mentioned the next 12 months. So I'm wondering, when you come back to CUE next year, and let's say you're keynoting CUE, hint, hint, what can we point to say that we will have accomplished in this last year?
Well, hopefully the legislation that we talked about that will you know, recognize online learning and fund it appropriately and fairly, recognize digital instructional materials instead of just textbooks being the way to go. Those are small steps, but having a broader momentum initiative that's effective out there, spreading the word about the value of digital learning, about the wonders of the new gadgets and gizmos that are there, from the whiteboards to also finding a way, and I'm going to convene our broadband providers, I'm going to convene the internet software companies to challenge how can they also be a help in having every student connected to the internet during the school day, and then in after school. I was the author of the After Schools program. We have 4,000 after school programs in California and 4,000 sites. Do we have computer access at all those sites? We should have it. So we can extend the learning day, and so part of what we want to see by the end of this next year and coming back here hopefully next year, that we would be able to say that we've created that momentum, and you know, students who have the means in their home budget and they have a netbook or a laptop can bring it to school. And as the technology evolves, what I'm fascinated with is that the way you connect isn't so important anymore as the fact that you can connect through some device or another. And so the you know, standardized, you know, 10 years ago thinking everybody has to have a desktop and then thinking everybody has to have a laptop. Well, it's changing.
Absolutely.
With all the iPads and you know, all the special screen interconnect devices. So I'm hoping that we can be announcing, you know, progress to that degree, that California is moving in a real positive direction in digital literacy and in getting the equipment to our students.
That's great.
And getting it into their homes as well.
Absolutely. And there's a number of interesting projects kind of working with teachers and parents and schools around that homeschool connection, which I think are really fascinating. One last area that you sort of hinted on a little bit is assessment. You mentioned personalized learning, and clearly that happens down at the school level and the classroom level, and we need to make a lot of gains there, but also at the state level we have some huge things happening nationally, Common Core coming down, and I'm wondering what sort of progress in this next year we think, with Common Core coming online, how we can start to work towards different assessment systems as well.
Well, as you know, the STAR system is over a dozen years old. It hasn't been analyzed as to its effectiveness. A lot of complaints that the data that is derived gets there late. The students have already gone on to the next school year. It's not diagnostic data, so we need to redo that assessment system. I am examining the two national consortia that are looking at a coalition of states that have got together. There are two choices. I'm leaning strongly towards Smarter Balance, which seems a richer way of getting information that can be diagnostic, and at the ends of the bell curve, where other testing devices just sort of look at the center of the bell curve. So we're looking at trying to find ways to have a national assessment system or national level that we can work with, say, half the states of the United States are in one system and half in another, but we need to pick the right one for California, and I think I know the answer to that. We're working with the State Board of Education and the governor to you know, make that final decision.
That's great.
But that's going to be really important.
Absolutely.
And then just having, again, the equipment in the hands of every teacher and every student, so that as they are learning math or as they're learning language arts at every grade level, this interactive software and technology that builds students' capacity step by logical step, that's so powerful. And teachers now that have access to this information or trained to use it, they love it because
Absolutely.
it gives them a pathway to help each child succeed.
Yeah.
And they get it right, a quick readout. The parents can check it online, so you can get daily, weekly feedback. It's all great.
Absolutely. Well, with only a second left here, I'm wondering if you have any special message to just teachers in particular who are working daily with the students in our communities, and any words of encouragement for them, especially with technology, for them to kind of feel that there's support throughout the state for what they're doing, the great things they're doing?
Well, first, to thank the teachers of California working valiantly day in and day out to achieve the dreams of our kids and their parents, and to help our kids reach success. The teachers are in a rough time now because the resources are cut and there's a lot of finger pointing and blame gaming going on, but I'm standing up and saying teachers are doing a brilliant job, and we can do it even better with technology. So they have a fan, an advocate, and a leader here, and my department, the California Department of Education, will be working very hard to implement the goals that CUE stands for, that these teachers aspire to see in every classroom in California. So
That's great.
I thank the teachers, and I believe that the public is turning in its opinion, and with Jerry Brown's leadership as governor, I think we're going to see the measure get to the ballot and have Californians have a chance to vote an historic vote to invest in education. And a big part of that will be telling the public of California that we're going to prepare young people for the 21st century workplace, and that's going to be how to use computers and the internet and smart boards in different ways to communicate, problem solve, and research.
Well, we can't thank you enough for your support, not only of CUE, but for all teachers and educators in the state of California and kids. It's so nice to have a teacher and a technology advocate, somebody who really understands it deeply and getting it, advocating for all of us so well. And we can't be more excited about where we're headed in the next year with your leadership.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Good to see you again.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us here on CUE Live. Check out all the videos on CUE Live from 2011 conference here in Palm Springs. There's been a lot of great stuff happening over the last 3 days. And again, hope to see you here at Palm Springs CUE next year in 2012. For everyone at CUE Live, I'm Chris Walsh. See you soon.